Our speaker today, as we read the fine print, is Rayna Dineen. Rayna Dineen. And as you can see from that first slide, she's the friend of Sharon Eklund's. And Sharon actually suggested that we invite Rayna here. And Rayna has accepted. She'll tell us about a very program she's running called Reading Quest. So help me welcome our speaker, Rayna Dineen.
Thank you all. It's funny because I feel like there's so many people in here who already know about Reading Quest, who have been great supporters, like Elise and Lynn. And I'm also really impressed with all the things your church does. It's really impressive. You know, over the years, I've been following a lot of what you all do. So thank you all for your commitment to the community and people all over the place. As you can see, that's Sharon. She is one of our volunteer tutors, which is very rare for us. Most all of our tutors are hired professionals, but Sharon is now a professional. She is also on our board, and this is her with two of her students at El Camino Real, who started out with us when we were not reading at all and who are now reading chapter books. So what do you think? I'm going to ask you all questions. What percentage of children in America can read proficiently at grade level? So 35% is the typical accepted number based on this one standardized test that you do use that's pretty challenging. And what percentage of New Mexico children can read proficiently at grade level? 72%, 47%, or 21%? All right. So you can all guess why we started Reading Quest here in New Mexico. I'm going to ask you some other questions, and then I'll tell you about our program and how we got here. How did we get to be this bad? True or false? Students who do not read proficiently by the 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school. Is that true or false? You're right. Oh, I don't have that little box there. If we can move that. There we go. Did that work? Okay. How about this one? 2/3 of students who cannot read proficiently by the end of 4th grade will end up in jail or on welfare. True? Yeah, sadly, it is true. And this is all from national statistics. Oh, my 3rd one is not. Wow. It seems to be stuck. Ah, there it is. Got it. Over 70% of America's inmates cannot read above the 4th grade level. Yeah. I worked at a jail up in Fort Collins, Colorado, teaching young men, and they were so sweet and so hungry to learn how to read. But that is where a lot of their problems started. Was early on, they couldn't read, they couldn't do any of the classwork, they start to feel really bad about themselves, couldn't get work. You know, if you can't even read a job ad, how are you going to fill out an application, and then how are you going to follow whatever the requirements are for the job? So because it's such a small group, you know, feel free to, you don't have to wait to the end if anyone wants to say something or has a question. You can just jump in. So we believe, as I was just saying, that reading is this foundational skill. Without it, your opportunities are really limited in a major way. And our mission is to provide this free of charge to all students and really empower them. Because mostly all those kids who struggle, they don't get private individual help because it's very expensive. It starts at around 65 to 85. Most people we know who tutor in Santa Fe, it's over $100 an hour. So if you're a low income family, right? Are you saying, oh, I'll go into that job? But here's, if you do it as a job, though, after school are your only options usually. They won't let private tutors into schools if you're charging money and have a business. So you're really limited to after school evenings and weekends. But there's tons of people who want that. There's lots of people who will pay top dollar for private tutoring. But the majority of kids that, well, all the kids we serve pretty much could never afford that. So what we do is we provide free tutoring to 440 public school kids each week in Santa Fe and West Las Vegas. We also serve kids in some of the pueblos and some kids online. All but about 40, I'd say 432 of them are all in person now. For a while there, we were all online. So our students are being referred by their classroom teachers as being 1 year or more below grade level in reading. So we're not taking those kids who are almost at grade level. We're really trying to focus on the kids who need it the most. So we serve, try turning the sound off. All right, I think that's better. Okay, so the majority of our students, they attend Title I schools on the south side of town, and or they're enrolled in the Native American Student Services Program. Many are bilingual or learning English. So we also have a program, as I think you all know, because some of the people here support some of these families, and you work with Heda and Sana, but we serve all of the Afghan refugee children and their families. So we serve them all one-on-one. During the week, they all get individual 1 hour of tutoring. We started as soon as they arrived last year, taught them all English. Now they're reading and speaking English like crazy. So we also have kids from Ukraine, Africa, South and Central America, Mexico. It's a whole program for kids who come here who need help with English. So there's 17 Afghan children in that program. And then there are 5 Afghani students who come and help us who are from United World College. Okay. And then there's 2 local Afghani students who live here, are sponsored by families. One is one of our tutors, and they're all in high school. And so all of those young people help with the program. And then the moms and older sisters all get tutored also during the time we meet all the kids on Saturdays for 2 hours. The parents are getting English classes with a woman from Afghanistan who's bilingual. So that's the whole Saturday program. These are some pictures from that program. We do art, we do group team building activities. We read to them, but mostly they're reading to us. And we're teaching them all kinds of sports. Like they've never played basketball until we taught them. They've never gotten the chance to play games. And especially all the girls are so excited to run around and do all the sports and all the games that we're doing. And then in the summer, we have free tutoring, like, I think it's close to like 300 hours in June. And then we have 3 camps in June and then 2 in July. In these camps, the kids learn about the Middle Ages and they create characters and they make a movie. So they help write a whole script and make a very professional movie, all based on magical creatures based in the Middle Ages. So these are all pictures. At the end of the camp, they become a knight, a prince, or a princess. And you can see they get dubbed at the end in that whole ceremony. And the kids are sitting around with their crowns, their shields, their swords, all these different things they've made throughout the camp. It's all based on never giving up and working hard and being kind. And so they all become really close and are extremely motivated, I'll put it that way, to work hard and read. And then some of you have been to these, but we offer workshops. So we do workshops for people who want to volunteer tutor in the schools, for parents, and for teen tutors. So for example, we support all the teen tutors, both for the district, but also in United World College, because they work with one of the schools there that we work in. So how did we get here? How did it get to be like this? Well, it's been like this for a very long time. But have any of you listened to this podcast, Sold a Story? It's a 6-part podcast that is so interesting, it will just blow your mind. But it explains how we started back about 50, 60 years ago. This woman named Marie Clay decided we should teach reading in a different way. My really great readers, they're not sounding out words, they're just reading. Why are we doing all this boring phonics stuff? And that started us down this horrible road of whole language teaching. And people and companies have made millions of dollars, even though the research always shows that phonics is the way. And these are just some headlines from a recent movie called The Right to Read. People know it doesn't work for a huge percentage of kids, which I'll show you. But they have been doing it because it's fun. It doesn't seem as boring. You're reading this great literature with kids, and they're trying to memorize the words, guess what fits. So they're reading, and they come on a word they don't know, and they try to guess what it could be. Look at what it could be. Look at the picture. Look at the context of the sentence. And that doesn't work.
My mother was an unexpected fifth child in the family, and my grandmother was an early elementary school teacher. And so they were having the battle back in the early 1900s. And my grandmother's rule was you couldn't teach my mother anything. She had to go in a blank slate into first grade, and she was going to test their system because she knew that sight reading wouldn't work. And sure enough, my mother went to school for a week, and then she got a bellyache. And my grandmother said, well, what's wrong? And she said, I can't read. And she said, stay home from school today, and I'll teach you to read. And that's what happened.
So many of the problems all stem from kids struggling and not feeling good and feeling like they can't read. There's so many of the problems of kids getting sick or being absent or acting out.
Yeah. She had a belly. She really did have a bellyache. Sure.
Yeah. So surveys show, and this is undisputed, about 60% of kids will fail to become proficient unless they get explicit phonics. But a lot of teachers got it without explicit phonics. So they're teaching in the way that worked for them, which is, well, I just learned how to read. I don't know how, I just did. Only 35% of public school kids are able to read proficiently at grade level, and those numbers go way down, depending on what test you're using. So this movie, The Right to Read, just came out. I'm hoping it'll come here. We're trying to get it shown. But this goes way back, denying the right to read for certain groups of kids. And here was the Alabama slave code. Any person who tried to teach anyone of color, whether they were free or slaves, would be convicted and fined not less than $250, nor more than $500. And our kids of color have really been losing out ever since then. And they don't get the same quality education.
Good question. You know, relate to dollar-wise in today's?
Ah, great question. I have no idea. Anybody know? What would that be today?
Much.
Easily 10 times that. Likely more than that.
There's quite a few slave narratives, you know, like Frederick Douglass, there's a bunch of other ones where the slaves had, that wanted to read, had to hide. And of course, what they would typically read would be the Bible.
Yeah.
But they had to hide secret,
Right.
or they would be.
There's so many inspiring stories of slaves and people who, like him, said, once you learn to read, you will be forever free. And they fought and they hid and they were killed, many, for teaching reading. So I recommend that podcast and this movie, The Right to Read, to really get at the whole history of how this all came to be. So what works? This is our little bullet point list of what works. Trusting relationships. It doesn't work if a different person each week is helping this child learn how to read. It really makes a huge difference if you've got the same teacher over time teaching you, who knows where you're at, who knows where you're struggling, who knows that you're shy about certain things. As I mentioned, we use structured literacy, phonics tutoring. Then multi-sensory strategies. So we use sign language so that it's kinesthetic. We use games, we use movement, we use dry erase boards, all kinds of multi-sensory ways of teaching reading. We use songs and games. I'll show you some pictures. And we make it fun. And I think that that's the most important ingredient in some ways, is making it fun. So you can take any game and make it a reading game, any game. So if you have Candyland, you just play with word cards. So each time before they take a turn, they read a word card. You can make Jenga a reading game by writing there the short vowel sound words, and then on the other side, we've got the words with two vowels. We call them magic E when there's an E at the end. And then all you need are word cards. And we've made these word cards that you can use, or you can just use lists of words that you have right there. Bossy R is when an R follows a vowel. It makes it make a new sound. So like when R follows an A, it says R. But when an R follows an O, it says or. And when R follows E, I, or U, it says So English might seem so complicated, but there really are these rules that work for a huge percentage of words. These are an example of just 3 of our games. So we have games that we've made because kids told us they love these things. So this one, they adopt cats and dogs. This one, they get to buy dragons and collect gold coins and jewels. This one, they get to buy cars, race cars, drive them around a track, make money. So we share these resources and we sell some of them. Like I said, we use sign language. So I don't know if you've ever had little kids who struggled communicating or learning how to speak, but sign language really helps with language development. And so we also found that sign language helps with teaching reading, especially our kids who don't speak English. E can be really hard. And so once you teach them, like E is for elephant, eh, 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 and you draw the trunk of an elephant, kids who struggle with that sound, before they read a word with an E, their hand goes like this. And then they're like, and we have a song that goes with that. So what does success look like? There's nothing wrong with our kids. Our kids are able to make incredible growth when they're taught this way. So this is our average over 11 years for just 2 weeks of camp. they make more than 1 year's growth. This fall, this is post-pandemic now, kids are way behind, but we see 73 kids at Nino Otero School. And all the first graders that we see, they made on average 48 points. The growth you would hope to see is 13, 12, or 11 points. So they made like 3 to 4 times the expected growth. And we collect these from the district, so these aren't even our own assessments. Our second graders, the average was 19 points. This is just from September to December this year. And you would hope to see 7, 10, or 8 points growth, and our second graders made 19 points growth. And for all of our third graders, their average was 26 points, and you would hope to see 5, 4, or 3, meaning for kids who aren't like ours, who aren't struggling, the average, national average they would hope to see is 5, 4, or 3 points. So our kids are really capable of making tremendous growth. And it's not because their families aren't reading to them. Reading to kids does not help them with reading. Reading to kids helps them with vocabulary and all kinds of great things. It's a wonderful thing to do. But think of all the immigrants who've come to our country who've never read to their kids. It didn't harm them in any way. It didn't stop them from becoming incredibly successful. Questions about anything so far?
In relationship to the 2-week period you mentioned, the year's growth, is there a sense as after how long it takes to get someone who's not reading to start reading on their own, or where they can,
Yeah.
how much time does that take?
So 2 things. First, I should say this growth happens because we have them for 70 hours. In that 2 weeks, they're getting more phonics instruction than they get in a classroom in an entire year. So they're getting a really intensive dose. We're only taking kids who've learned their ABCs. So when we teach kids their ABCs during the year, say first, second, third, fourth graders sometimes don't know their ABCs, the amount of time it takes them to learn that is as different as every kid. Some kids just pick it up, they get it, the name, every letter in the alphabet has a name, every letter has a sound. That is so hard. Think of the letter Y. Why is it called a Y? What sound does it make? Yeah, like yellow. We have a bunch of letters like that are really challenging. So it can take some kids a really long time to go from not reading at all to getting their ABCs and then starting to read 3-letter words. That's when we take them into camp, when they can at least read 3-letter words. But every kid, it grows at such different rates. Depends if they have dyslexia, it's going to take them longer. If they don't know any English at all, how do they even know if they're reading a word correctly if they've never heard that word before? So a kid who speaks English very well, they'll read a word, maybe the word is dig. I can dig. And they say, I can ditch, because G, the name, J, you think it's a J. But if you're an English speaker, you're going to be like, oh, that must be dig. But for our kids who don't know the word dig, how do they know? So we have to teach them that G makes that G sound, unless it's followed by E, I, or Y. There is a rule that tells you when G says G.
Yeah, so I guess a whole bunch of questions that come to mind, but the major thing is, has anybody done an estimate of the social cost to, say, the United States or Mexico or even Santa Fe of not having kids being able to read at grade level? You see all this increase in violence in schools, people carrying guns, because of presumably psychological frustrations. And so there might be a tie into this. I was wondering, it seemed to me from what you presented that there's certainly a huge role for government to support programs such as yours. And why isn't it forthcoming?
Because it doesn't make money for anybody else. It helps in general. It of course makes a huge difference in reducing poverty and reducing violence and reducing all that stuff. But no one makes money except for those companies that sold those millions of dollars of bad curriculum. School itself, education, is very expensive, but it doesn't make money like sports does, like entertainment does. Look at our newspaper. What are the things that are really featured? Sports gets a whole section. If it wasn't for the Coalition for Public Education, there wouldn't even be that one page once a week on education. And that's only our paper. There's tons of papers. And if you look at the news, the only time education gets in the news usually is for something bad. It's very rare you get like all the good things that are happening. But it's not a moneymaker for anybody.
But it's costing the government and the public in the long run.
So do you want to run for some office maybe and help people get that point across?
At some point, I know that you met with officials in Santa Fe Public Schools, and I know that they're aware of their amazing data. What, it's just so obvious, you've been doing reading class for maybe 10 years or so. The results are there. Why haven't they disseminated this across the whole community? I just, I work with Amigos, which is a very small volunteer nonprofit, and we've done 21 workshops for probably 250 to 300 teachers over the last 6 years. And our mission is to help them inspire kids to love math. And I was just sharing some data that's from the public education department in New Mexico about math scores. And I was really shocked because if you take overall math proficiency in Santa Fe, it's about 50%, but if you look at subgroups, you look at the English language learners, the Hispanic, and the pre-lunch, their number of percent of kids on grade level is 6 to 10%. The kids that are not English language learners, not Hispanic, not on pre-lunch, is 30%. So there's a 20 percentage point difference just in these subgroups. So just kind of coming back around to the question of Santa Fe Public Schools, so this data is not on the Santa Fe Public School website. It is nowhere to be found there. I had to go through, they had an assessment in Santa Fe Public Schools to even get them, even though it was there. It's on the New Mexico Public Education website. So parents have no idea about these results because there's no consumable that they can find here in our own community. So it's so obvious that every program should be targeted one of those communities. They're all overlapping. Hispanic, English language, but yet that's not what we see in the paper. It's like one size fits all. Everybody is structured, everybody is getting together, it's rated. But anyway, I didn't have to say that because that delta is so huge. So the one response of the district, why don't they have training every single teacher?
So schools get a lot of money for buildings and capital improvements. They do not get a lot of money to pay groups like us. They got it. A better football field, they got it. All of those amendments that we vote on are all for capital improvements.
Rayna, I have a question. For those who attend the summer camp, the 2 weeks, obviously there are tutors or teachers or something there. What is the ratio of those individuals to the number of students? What is the ratio?
1 to 2.
1 to 2. Okay, if you go to a school here in Santa Fe, the last number I saw, the ratio with teacher was 1 to 40. Now, I, to address the problem, I don't know your name.
Lynn,
No, the lady who was just talking. I
Lynn,
don't- Okay, anyway, I think one of the reasons that data is buried, I think it's a conscious effort, in fact, to bury those numbers is because solving the problem in education is not easy. I mean, in the past, I'll say, well, send more money. Well, I mean, people aren't going into teaching because it's frustrating. I mean, my wife came from teaching the English just because I don't know how to answer that particular question because there's a shortage of people who want to go teach.
right, and I'll tell you one reason why though.
Yeah,
How many of you have kids who are doing really well in school, in high school? Anybody?
I'm sorry.
Did any of you recommend that they go into teaching? Almost nobody does. At least, way to go. It is so rare. We go into the high schools, we're trying to find those high school kids to work with us. And the best students typically are told, well, don't go into teaching. It's terrible. Hey, it's mostly older people. You should go into finance or law or medicine or something else, computer, engineering. But there is no pathway where there's a medical pathway at Capitol High, there's other pathways around the country. It's very hard for young, bright kids to say, I want to be a teacher. So we're trying to change that. We're working really hard to get more and more teens. Every year we have a bunch of teens who work on our camps. The other thing about class size, if you have 22 or less, that's great. And some of our schools are so under enrolled now, teachers only have 13, 15 kids in their class. And then there's teachers in some of our Southside schools who have 30. It's very unfairly distributed. But I've worked in schools, I've seen schools in India and Japan that have 30, 40 kids. And it's okay. So much of it depends on the support you get, where the kids are at, how much education is respected. And in our country, education is not respected.
No, I don't think it is in New Mexico.
I haven't worked there.
I just started just working over at the kids is so in the camp and your messages trying to teach the kids phonetically so that reading becomes better. What's the other terminology for
Yeah,
being modes they're pushing it all the same?
right. The other curriculum that still tons of people love is called whole language. So they'll read a book with a kid that says like, this is a tractor, and there's a picture of a tractor. This is a cow. This is a sheep. This is a barn. And so the kids are memorizing, this is a, and then they're looking at the picture, they're looking maybe at the first letter, and they're guessing. If you show them the word tractor, barn, and cow alone, they cannot read those words. But it looks like they're reading. So it's basically, there's this system called the 3-cueing system, where they're giving them these cues or clues to guess what the word is. And phonics base means you teach them that every letter makes a sound. And depending on how it's combined, it makes new sounds or different sounds. So this is our center. We're in the Growing Up New Mexico Early Childhood Center. They're so kind to donate a space to us. And then we have a room that we've made very magical in the schools that we work in. So Sweeney, El Camino Real, DPB, like those schools, all we have our own room where we see the kids. So people always ask us, well, how can I get involved? Sometimes people give us gift certificates so we can buy books for kids. That's always nice. We have a readathon. I have the flyers. If anyone wants to join our readathon, it's going to start March 19th, I think. You can donate adult books that you no longer want to Opposite Bookstore, and they'll give us credit. And Garcia Street Books has an outside little bookshelf where people can take books for free and give us the donation. They have a little jar inside and outside. Or you could help sponsor a kid. This is our biggest need, of course, is sponsoring students so that we can tutor them for the whole year. What are our future plans? Elise helped us make a strategic plan, and we have done everything on it and made a new one. So we're hoping to keep increasing. People from the public education department have asked us to be in every city. Well, in order for us to do that, we need funding. We'd like to serve more schools in Santa Fe, more pueblos. We'd like to expand our services for refugee students. We have teaching videos that a lot of teachers use all over the country. And we just got word from PED they're going to pay us to make 4 more. And then we have resources and games like I showed you. We like to share those. The district buys some, charter schools sometimes buy some. But the biggest need is to have sustainable finances, because most of our funding comes from grants, and grants are not guaranteed every year. And a lot of grants they'll give to you for 3 years and then you have to take a year off, or they change their focus. So you might get and start a great program, but then they're no longer funding that sort of thing. So that's the biggest challenge of running a nonprofit, where all the people you're serving mostly cannot afford your services. So we don't have, like, all those 400 families, they're not helping us fundraise. They're just struggling to put food on the table, pay their rent. Underlying everything we do is something called a growth mindset. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it. Maya. So that's the biggest thing we teach all of our kids. So thank you for having me. And if anyone has questions that you haven't asked already, Elise, yeah, we'll try the videos.
For everybody, the website really has lots of very helpful material from thinking talent and your kids. And those of us who are doing tutoring have volunteers. And get lots of things on the website. But Rayna, I wondered, this church has supported reading. How? And I think
Okay.
fun have come from our mission and social justice to reading this program.
So each year it's been a little bit of a different focus, but most recently it was helping with our admin. So that's how we were able to expand. We were just seeing them since last February in a big group with their parents, getting the English and the kids getting English. But we weren't able to have, we didn't have funding to see that each one of them somehow. So that's what that helped with.
And so we can advocate for this as more funding, because it is a solution. I mean, there's so many things that are wrong, but this is a solution. So
You would not believe those kids, all of the Afghan kids have made more growth in 1 year than hundreds of kids we know who've been here for years. Part of it is that they are really immersed in English everywhere in their life. And we're able to see all of them one-on-one, and they're extremely motivated too, so they all work really hard. But